Well, hello and welcome back. I'm Dan John from danjohnuniversity.com. It's been a kind of fun couple of weeks going back through some of my old materials. And I've mentioned before finding this little red book that has information all the way back to 1973 that I hand wrote little things in there so I could remember them, keep a record of them. And I had no idea at the time that they would become the foundation of my thought for literally my entire career. It is funny to go back and look at them. And I was telling Mike Brown yesterday about how I've been writing The Sword in the Stone. I've been retyping the whole Sword in the Stone for this project I'm doing, and how much clearer my understanding of the book has become, but also how much better of a writer I've become by, scribbling down the T.H. White's wonderful prose. Well, I came back to this because the ones I want to talk about today make me kind of laugh out loud. First off, as a young kid, like everybody, there was this thing called the Soviet Union, and they had all the answers. And then we started getting those books trickling our way. And man, you'd read those and you'd understand, well, here's why I'm not better. It's because I'm only undulating periodization, not quasi, macro, micro. Well, later, of course, I met some Soviet athletes and got to know them really well. One was a very famous hammer thrower, and most people know what I'm talking about. And the other is one of the great Olympic lifters, and we became very good friends. And one day he told me, Dan, all that stuff about weightlifting that you read is not true. And I go, what do you mean? It's written down. He goes, well, many of the great Olympic lifters in the Soviet Union can't read, so they're not going to follow those programs. And I went, wow. And then later on, with a different eye, I began to notice certain things and hear other things. John Powell, the great American discus thrower, once told me that the Soviets wrote that the reason John threw so far is because he had a 550-pound bench. And John told me they were only off by 200 pounds. He only benched 350. By the way, I say only because in our world of throwers, a 350 bench is, I hate to say it out loud, kind of weak, But what I began to do is I would bump into little things. And one of the best things I bumped into was J.K. Doherty's Track and Field Omni book. And what was wonderful about the Omni book is that he would include just these little snippets of information from all different resources. And I wrote down 3 of them. I'll share 3 of them with you today. Now, 2 are Soviet and 1 is West German, but you'll see the reasons I picked these. And there's another reason I picked these is because they're on the very last page of my little red book. And I don't even know if there's other pages. I don't remember if they were. They might have fallen off in time somewhere. This first thing really helped me a lot in my career. And I didn't know it at the time what an impact it was having. It's Viktor Saniev, the great 3-time gold medalist triple jumper from the Soviet Union. And he breaks down his training into 5 different periods a year. And the one that first caught my eye was what he called his transition period. And I'll just give you the basic week. Day 1, game. Day 2, rest. Day 3, game, rest, game, rest, game, rest, game, rest. And when I looked at that, I kind of realized to myself that, all work and no rest made Danny a sad boy. And it was at that time I started looking around for other ways that we could, kind of get my athletes happier. So I came up with a number of games. You have to kind of change all the games just enough so that the kids who are specialists, like, if you've got a couple of female volleyball players, you really can't play pickup volleyball games because your boys who maybe in other sports aren't any good, so it just looks bad. So we adopted Hoover ball, which is, and you can look it up, it's volleyball using a medicine ball. I recommend using the 4-pound Dynamax ball. It's safe, it's soft, you're not going to break fingers, you're not going to break teeth or noses. And the kids would play that for hours. There's a big ball called the Swiss ball, and I never thought much of it. I never really thought much of it at all. But there was one, I think someone had used it and then realized it was just, whatever. And we started playing soccer using the high school football goalposts as the goal with this darn ball. And the kids would, I can't get a thrower to sprint to save their life, but they would sprint up and down the field for an hour and beg to play more. And I learned as a coach, if the kids want to play, if they want to play more Hoover ball or more Swiss ball soccer, let them go, have some fun. We later, because of discus camp, Ben Tuma, this great Delaware thrower, we started playing ultimate frisbee, which is a great game for every athlete. I got a couple of funny stories about that I'll save you now. But and then from there we developed ultimate Hoover, where you play ultimate frisbee, but with that 4-pound Dynamax ball. So I'm trying to get my throwers to throw medicine balls, but why not have them do it in a game and have some sprinting and laughs thrown in too? Oh, there's endless variations. We used to play no goalie soccer. We played, now in Europe it's called handball, but here in the States it's usually called speedball, and we would play with an old beat up volleyball, and just have fun, have some laughs. Thank you, Victor Sandiev. The other thing I picked up on this, and I'm just going to use the 1 week, is competition period 1, prep 2, where day 1 he did technical work and strength training. Day 2 he did technical work and speed training. A rest day, technical work strength, next day technical work speed, rest day, repeat ad nauseum. Well, I looked at that and I was like, how can you be great resting 3 days a week? And it was about that time I started to realize that when they call that one magazine Muscle and Fiction, and what you read even in the great sports magazines, they're almost always just nonsense. I've met some of the people who were like Strength and Health with Profile. And they say, yeah, I did that workout once. But that's the workout I thought you should be doing all the time. Thank you, Victor. Well, on the next page is some information from Bondarchuk, the great Soviet hammer thrower. He got the gold medal, but I think it's more impressive what he did 4 years later. He only got the bronze, but his athlete got the gold medal, which is pretty impressive. And Bondarchuk talks about in this one thing a concept he called load leaping. And I developed it in part with this idea called the one lift a day program, or the body is one piece is what we also call it. But I didn't have the courage to follow him exactly. And honestly, in hindsight, I regret this. Basically, week 1 is 100%. Week 2 is 80%, whatever that means. And week 3, he called 15%, and you played games. Well, when I first charted out the body as one piece, my thought was this: 1 lift a day, 7 sets of week 1 lift a day, 7 sets of 5, 35 total reps, and mixing the Olympic lifts and the power lifts. So maybe Monday snatch, Tuesday bench press, Wednesday clean, Thursday front squat. This is a tough week. And then Friday deadlift. Now, the reason that's a tough week is that you only do it once every 3 weeks. And you'd also do a lot of throwing. I'll get to my ideal one in just a second. Week 2 is 6 sets of 3, which is 18 reps, half the volume, but you'd only lift 4 days that week, and it'd be easy to do with keeping the snatch, the clean, the front squat, and the bench. There you go, 1 lift a day. And week 3, well, that's when you play Hoover ball, ultimate Hoover. That should be a fun week. I wish I could do this. Maybe 3 days you play 3 different games and rotate it. If I was coaching more than a few athletes, I would turn it into some kind of tournament where I would have an ultimate frisbee game going on over there and a Hoover ball tournament going on here, and the teams would switch around. And the nice thing about that is you reward more than just one skill set. My ideal idea is to have a camp experience week 1, and you'd have a serious competition practically every day. So, if you're a thrower, you get 6 throws. It might take an hour, it might take 3 hours. Real intense. Every mark is measured. You rank the athletes, you post the results, you put a lot of pressure on them, but you do it every single day. So you'll get a chance to see how they peak and valley during the week. maybe 2 lifting sessions every day, and maybe 2 more additional throwing or drill sessions a day. We're talking hard days. Of course, you're also eating in the cafeteria and you're sleeping in dorms. Week 2, you go home, train with your own coach, throw 4 times a week, a traditional Ralph Mahn schedule, lift 3 days a week, and on week 3, you're out having fun in games again. And what you try to do, ideally, is watch the athletes' competition marks grow in that week 1, ideally, and maybe some of their lifts would grow a little bit or go down depending on where they are in their career. And really the week I'd be most interested in would be week 2 to see how we could springboard them in their practice throws. It's just funny to look back on it and realize that load leaping is a concept that's always been in my head. I just never trusted it well enough to do it. That's on me. The third section here is from Peter Sheen, and it's called mixed training. And real basically, I'm not going to go through everything, but there's two examples here, Monday and Tuesday. What Sheen has his athletes do is, for example, that you come in and you do high pulls. Now, for those of you who lift, listen to these numbers. 7 sets of 30, 210 reps, but with 75 pounds. That's a lot of them. And then you would throw, is it the heavy hammer? You throw the heavy hammer just 10 times, which I think is very low. Power cleans, 7 times 20. This is a rowing program, but deadlifts, more throw weights, squats. I took this idea, and if you go online, if you go to danjohn.net, you go to the discus throwing section, you'll find a contrarian approach to discus throw. And what I learned from mixed training is I turned this into what I called circuit training, where you would have some of your athletes, let's use the discus throwing example because it's easy for me. So you got some of your athletes doing the 4 or 5 step approach thrown into a wall with power balls. Then the other group is over there doing power curls with an Olympic bar. The next group is there with broomsticks doing the X drill. This group is over there doing farmer walks back and forth. This group here maybe running 2 hills. This group here doing tire throws. That's where you hold a car tire, moose antlers height, and you practice throwing and playing catch with each other. And you just rotate them. Maybe you'd have the next station before full throws, maybe some Tim Anderson's original strength, maybe rocking and neck nods, and that's all it'd be, just to give a little dip. I consult with a lot of professional collegiate football teams, and one of the things I try to recommend to them is quit having a flexibility station. Flexibility practice is at 8 o'clock. Power is at 9 o'clock. Tactics and film watch is here. Tackling is here. 11 on 11 here. 11 on 11. Let's push that aside because that's more specific. But why not just have on the football field some guys doing bear crawls, some guys doing tackling drills, some guys doing deadlifts, some guys doing stadium steps, and just work in a circuit? Not for conditioning, but for the realities of both real time, how much time you want to spend out there, and the way you play a football game. A football game is staccato. You don't really always know where your arousal is going to be, where your heart rate is going to be, but you just got to keep going. I hope you like this series. I've enjoyed doing this. I'm going to be reading you some things from bodybuilders, some things from great Olympic lifters. Just some silly little notes. I look at some of them and I wonder why I put them in there. But I hope you take a little bit of advice here. When you find something worth remembering, write it down and keep it. I'm Dan John from Dan John University. I hope you learned something today. Thank you.